Thousands of ducks are moving through the waterways of rural Vietnam, but this is more than just an impressive sight. For the farmers guiding them, this journey is part of everyday life. These massive flocks can't stay in one place forever. As the available food begins to disappear, the entire flock has to move again. And when you're dealing with thousands of ducks, getting from one field to the next is anything but simple. Some of these journeys lead across muddy paths and harvested rice fields. But when the next feeding area is farther away, farmers turn to the network of canals that runs through the countryside. The ducks are gathered along the water's edge, guided onto specially prepared boats, and transported together to another area. Moving a flock this large takes patience, experience, and a surprising amount of coordination. So why go through all this trouble, instead of keeping the ducks on one farm and simply bringing food to them? The answer is waiting in the rice fields ahead. But first, the farmers have to get the entire flock there. For most of the day, these ducks are free to spread out across harvested rice fields, searching for food on their own, instead of depending entirely on feed brought in by the farmers. The flock can forage through the fields, picking up leftover grain and other food they find along the way. With thousands of ducks constantly feeding, however, even a productive field won't provide enough food forever. Eventually, the flock has to move on. Somewhere beyond these fields, another feeding area is waiting, and finding it is part of the farmer's routine. This is what makes free-range duck farming here so different. The flock doesn't simply live around one permanent farm. The farmers follow the changing availability of feeding areas, moving thousands of ducks whenever necessary. But before they can begin that journey, all of those birds have to be brought back together. And gathering a flock this large is where the real work begins. Getting thousands of ducks back together is a job that takes both patience and experience. After spending hours spread across the fields searching for food, the flock can cover a surprisingly large area. The farmers begin from the outside, slowly guiding the ducks toward the main group and closing the gaps as they move. There is no need to control every bird individually. Once one section of the flock begins moving, the others naturally start to follow. Little by little, thousands of ducks come together, forming one enormous moving flock. But keeping them together is just as important as getting them moving. A few birds can easily wander in the wrong direction, so the farmers constantly watch the edges and guide them back toward the group. As the flock gets closer to the canal, the available space becomes narrower and the birds begin crowding together. What looked almost peaceful out in the open field suddenly becomes much more intense. Thousands of ducks are now packed into one place, and just ahead of them is the boat that will carry the entire flock to its next feeding ground. Now comes one of the most difficult parts of the journey, getting thousands of ducks onto the boat. The farmers use temporary fencing to keep the flock together and create a narrow path leading toward the water. As the first ducks move forward, the rest begin to follow, slowly funneling into a much smaller space. At this point, there isn't much room for error. If the flock turns around or begins spreading out, the farmers may have to gather them all over again. So instead of rushing, they keep the birds moving at a steady pace. One group after another makes its way toward the boat until the compartments begin filling with ducks. From a distance, it almost looks chaotic, but there is a clear system behind the movement. The farmers watch the flock closely, adjust the barriers when necessary, and make sure the ducks continue moving in the same direction. Little by little, an entire flock that once covered a huge rice field is packed safely onto a single boat. And once the last ducks are on board, the next part of their journey can finally begin. With thousands of ducks finally on board, the boat pulls away from the bank, and the journey continues through the narrow waterways of rural Vietnam. These canals connect farming areas that can be miles apart, giving duck farmers a practical way to move an entire flock without forcing the birds to travel long distances on foot. For the ducks, it's a temporary break from walking and foraging. For the farmers, it's simply another part of managing a flock that rarely stays in one place for long. The boat moves slowly through the countryside, passing rice fields, small farms, and communities along the water. Packed together on board are thousands of ducks, all heading toward the same destination. It's an unusual sight. But for farmers who depend on different feeding grounds throughout the season, this kind of journey can become part of the routine. Eventually, the boat begins approaching the next stop. Somewhere beyond the canal is another open field, another source of food, and another place for the flock to spend the days ahead. But before any of that can happen, thousands of ducks have to come off the boat. As the boat reaches the next stop, the journey isn't over just yet. Now the farmers have to get thousands of ducks back onto land. A temporary path is prepared near the bank, giving the flock a clear way off the boat. At first, only a few ducks begin moving. Then, almost instantly, hundreds more follow behind them. Within moments, the quiet riverbank fills with movement as thousands of birds pour out of the boat and gather together once again. Just like during loading, the farmers have to control the edges of the flock and keep the ducks moving in the same direction. There's little space along the canal, and if part of the flock turns the wrong way, the entire process can quickly become much more difficult. But once enough ducks begin following the route ahead, the rest naturally fall in behind them. Slowly, the massive flock leaves the water behind and begins moving toward the open fields. After traveling through the canals together, they've finally reached their new feeding ground. And this is where the real reason for the entire journey becomes clear. And now, the reason for the entire journey is right in front of them. As the flock reaches the new field, thousands of ducks begin spreading out almost immediately, searching the ground for food. Harvested rice fields can provide opportunities for free-range ducks to forage for leftover grain and other food they find naturally along the way. Instead of keeping the entire flock in one permanent location and relying completely on purchased feed, farmers can move their ducks between available feeding areas. That's why these journeys are so important. When one field can no longer provide enough food, another field becomes the next destination for the farmer. That means gathering thousands of ducks, loading them onto a boat, traveling through the canals, and then bringing the entire flock back onto land. It's a tremendous amount of work. But once the ducks spread across a fresh field and begin foraging again, the purpose of all that effort becomes easy to understand. And before long, when this feeding ground has given the flock what it can, the same journey may begin all over again. For these farmers, moving the flock isn't a special event. It's simply part of life with thousands of free-range ducks. Their work follows the needs of the flock from one rice field to another, across muddy paths, along riverbanks, and through the canals that connect the countryside. Every move takes time, patience, and a great deal of coordination. But it's all part of keeping the ducks moving toward the next available feeding ground. And perhaps that's what makes this way of farming so fascinating. The farmers don't just care for the flock in one place. In many ways, they travel with it. Wherever the ducks need to go next, the farmers have to find a way to get them there. And somewhere in rural Vietnam, another massive flock may already be preparing for the same journey. Thanks for joining us on Lam-farmer. If you enjoyed seeing this side of farming, subscribe to the channel and join us for the next story.